Oh dear, we've crashed into some floating gardens, into the tomatoes.
We're Lauren and Craig, and in 2008 we bought a one-way ticket to Australia. Since then we've been backpacking, campervanning and volunteering our way around the world. Our aim is to have as much fun as possible and live as cheaply as we can, and we've certainly achieved that over the years.
Cheers. Happy travels.
Here's some snippets from our trip in Myanmar in 2018. We flew into the city of Mandalay and were given a warm welcome by the lovely locals. Mandalay is full of temples and pagodas and we couldn't wait to explore them, so we took full advantage of our hotel's free bikes and headed out to see them. Seeing as we love nature, we decided to escape the city for a day and hire a guy with a tuk-tuk to take us to some remote waterfalls with bright blue swimming holes. If there's any heavy rain, the water can change from a beautiful milky blue to murky brown in seconds, so we were relieved to find it on one of its good days, and it was absolute paradise. There was a lovely little waterfall at the back of the pool which you could sit under and get a free back massage. The following morning we caught a boat across to Mingan to see this beautiful white pagoda. Later in the afternoon we did a big cycle ride to Ubane Bridge where we watched the sunset. We had to cycle back through the city at night, so I had a head torch on and all of the insects and flies were attracted to the light, so they just kept flying into my face. After a few days exploring Mandalay, we were excited to head to Bagan, which is famous for having hundreds of temples and pagodas. The easiest way to get around the area is by electric bike, and we hired one for just $3 a day. One of the best things to do in Bagan is watch the sunrise, and to do so we had to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. There are over 2,000 temples and you can go inside them, climb up some really narrow passages and end up on the roof, which is the best spot to watch the sunrise. However, since 2018 they've locked many of them up so you can't access the roof anymore, but we managed to do a lot of exploring and find some ones which were still open. Bagan ended up being one of our favourite areas in Myanmar. It was very easy to avoid the crowds and so much fun whizzing around on the e-bike. Like most tourists visiting the country, we also headed to Indi Lake, which is home to some amazing floating gardens and people living in very rustic villages along the shores. We headed out on a boat trip and we specifically asked our driver not to take us to any of the touristy workshops, and instead we visited a small village which was home to hundreds of beautiful shrines.
Running over to say hello. Oh, sweetie. And Craig's got his own dog over here.
It was interesting seeing how the locals paddled their boats using their leg to twist the oar around. There was one man demonstrating how they used to fish in the area by balancing on the end of the boat with a big basket. They don't do it like this anymore, so it's just for tourists to see. The following day we cycled around the lake to visit a market. This is where a local ethnic group come to do their weekly shop. We managed to put our bikes on a boat which would take us across the lake, but on the way the boatman managed to crash into a floating garden. We caught a night bus to the city of Yangon, and after seeing the main attractions we found ourselves in a very unique place. an abandoned theme park that closed 15 years ago and had been taken over by the jungle. We've experienced some pretty crazy storms on our travels, but this one was probably the worst. The locals even told me not to get my phone out and video it because the lightning was so close to us that we could get electrocuted. After the storm had passed, the road was totally flooded. We were walking through knee-deep water, but the locals were carrying on like it was normal. Myanmar ended up being one of our favourite countries due to the friendly locals, cheap prices and amazing sights.